We're continuing on with the story of King Josiah, and we're looking at it from a present-day application. You know, any other kings can be looked at from a present-day application, in that we all of us, when we walk the way that our Messiah walked, we come to a point to where we're fathered from above, that is born again, and that being that's fathered from above, he inherits a land. This land that he inherits is our flesh bodies. You know, it's a type of land. For it's formed from the dust of the earth, and when we die, it's going to go back to the earth. Amen. You know, so this newborn being inherits this land, and there's a bunch of ites in the land. There's giants in the land, just as when Israel inherited the land, they were in there. You know, and over the course of time, you know, they've come to be settled, and now they've grown up as thorns and thistles within our midst. You know, and it's the king's job to rule over the land. And so, you know, King Josiah set an excellent example as to how to do that. You know, when he came into reign, he began to clean up the kingdom. You know, just as when we're fathered from above, we need to take control, truly rule over this land. That is our flesh bodies, and take everything out the temple that doesn't belong. Clean up the land, throw everything out that doesn't supposed to be there. And this is what he started, and this is where what we got into in the previous lesson, and we're going to continue on today. 2 Kings 2:23, 2 Kings chapter 23, rather, from this viewpoint. The first 5 verses says, "And the king sent, and they gathered unto him all the elders of Yahudah and of Jerusalem. And the king went up into the house of Yahudah, and all the men of Yahudah, and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets, and all the people, both small and great. And he read in the ears of all the words of the book of the covenant which was found in the house of Yahudah. And the king stood by a pillar and made covenant before Yahudah." Now, I want to stop for a second so that we can take note that there's actually an aleph tav in the text right there that doesn't get translated. So normally you would not see this, you know. But in that, the Messiah told us he is the Alpha and Omega, which translates in Hebrew as the aleph and the tav. You know, we know that this represents him, and so here it is. We can see that what Scripture is painting a picture for us, letting us know that it's actually Yahshua's covenant that's being entered into, or this is a picture or symbolism of Yahshua's covenant, you know, even as the one that we've entered into. And it goes on to say, "And made Yahshua's covenant before Yahuwah, to walk after Yahuwah, to keep his commandments and his testimonies and his statutes with all their heart and with all their soul, to perform the words of this covenant that were written in this book. And all the people stood to the covenant." You know, and so it is today. We have over 2 billion believers that profess Yahshua, that has entered into covenant with Yahshua. And it goes on and it says in verse 4, "And the king commanded Hilkiah the high priest and the priests of the second order and the keepers of the door to bring forth out of the temple all the vessels that were made for Baal and for the grove and for all the host of heaven. And he burned them without Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron, and carried the ashes of them unto Bethel." Okay, so spiritually speaking, here it is. We see the king cleaning house, as we were speaking of, and it says that he brings forth out of the temple, and we know that our bodies are even a type of temple of Elohim. We bring forth out of the temple all the vessels that were made for Baal. And you say, "Well, I don't have any vessels that were made for Baal in my temple." You know, but many quote-unquote Christians actually do have vessels that was made for Baal in their temple. You know, anything that was actually made in honor of the sun god or any pagan god, you know, would actually fit the bill here, you know, spiritually speaking. You know, and there's a lot of paganism that has integrated itself with the faith. You know, and when we look at things such as Easter and Christmas, these things come directly out of Baal and Ishtar worship. You know, and so we can see right there that some of the things have actually crept in. And when we enter into covenant with Yah and we begin to rule over this land and start cleaning things out, you know, these are some of the things that go along with everything that comes along with it. You know, such as St. Patty's Day, when everybody want to go and get drunk, and things, you know, things of this nature that has absolutely nothing to do with Yah. That has nothing to do with his covenant that we've agreed upon. Okay? Now, let's take a look at a couple of these terms. Kidron is actually means dark. And Bethel means the house of Elohim, or the house of God. You know, now let's take note that he's taking things out of the temple, and it says, bring forth out of the temple of Yahuwah all the vessels that were made for Baal, and for the grove, and for all the host of heaven. So everything that's not of Yah. And it says he burned them without Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron, and carried the ashes of them unto Bethel. You know, now spiritually speaking, Jerusalem can speak to the teachings of peace, or the place of peace, the city of peace. You know, Yahshua's his teachings and instructions are a type of teachings of peace. You know, and New Jerusalem is a type of city of peace. Okay, that those who adhere to the teachings of peace will reside. Amen. Okay, so now it tells us that he burned them without there. So they have no place in this. You know, they have no place in the teachings of peace. They have no place in the city of peace. So in other words, spiritually speaking, we're going to take everything that is not in Yah's teachings and put them out. That's not in the word of Elohim, and put them out of where we reside. Okay? And it says, taken to the fields of Kidron. The field, we know, Yahshua taught us in this parable that the fields represent the world. You know, so you're taking it to the world of Kidron, or the world of darkness. You know, which is exactly where it belongs. So you're to burn them in the world of darkness, in darkness, and then carry the ashes of them unto Bethel. You know, the house of God, the house of the pagan gods. You know, so that's where you take the ashes. You leave them there. You leave all that stuff, all the ways to worship pagan gods. You leave it in their temples. You don't bring it into Yah's temple. The way that the pagans worship their Elohim is not the way that we supposed to worship ours. You know, and in his book of the law, he told us that, you know, he don't want to be worshipped. He doesn't want to be praised. He doesn't want to be honored the way that the pagans worship and honor and praise their Elohim. You know, so here it is. We see a spiritual picture of him taking this stuff out of the place of Elohim, entering into covenant with him, and Josiah, you know, ruling over the land and actually getting rid of these things as he should have. You know, so awesome picture here. You know, carry it, burn it in the world, and take the ashes and take them back to where they came from, to the house of these pagan gods, and leave them there. May I have my first reader read verses 6 through 10, please.
And he brought out the grove from the house of Yahuwah without Jerusalem unto the brook of Kidron, and burned it at the brook Kidron, and stamped it small to powder, and cast the powder thereof upon the graves of the children of the people. And he brake down the houses of the Sodomites that were by the house of Yahuwah, where the woman grove hanging for the grove. Wove hanging for the grove. And he brought all the priests out of the city of Judah, and defiled the high places where the priests had burned incense, from Geba to Bathsheba, and broke down the high places of the gates that were in the entering in of the gates of Joshua, the governor of the city, which were on a man's left hand at the gates of the city. Nevertheless, the priests of the high places came not up to the altar of Yahuwah in Jerusalem, but they did eat of the unleavened bread among their brethren. And he defiled Tophet, which is in the valley of the children of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or his daughter to pass through the fire of Molech.
Okay, now the spiritual picture here is powerful. In verse 6, it says that he brought out the grove from the house of Yahuwah. So, first of all, we have to acknowledge that there was a grove in the house of Yahuwah. And, you know, as we were speaking here in the present day application, there's groves in the house of Yahuwah, you know, when the born again believer enters into this flesh, these flesh bodies. You know, there is oftentimes groves in the house of Yahuwah. Now, the grove, you know, was actually a thicket of trees, you know, that was placed in high places in a clearing. Now, we know, scripturally speaking, that trees represents people. So within this, you can see, you know, these people that was in these high places, you know, and here it is. They were in the house of Yahuwah. So here it is. It speaks to, spiritually speaking, it speaks to some people that was in the house, of Yahuwah. You know, that shouldn't have been there. You know, you have to get these people out of your lives. There are some people who would cause you to stray from the word of Elohim. There are some people in your lives when you're Father from above that will cause you to adhere to pagan practices, and these are the people that needs to be cut out of your lives. They need to be taken out. You know, they have no place in the house of Elohim. They have no place in the temple of the Most High El. And so you see Josiah taking them out unto the brook of Kidron, you know, and the brook. Now we went to a field, from a field to a brook. You notice that? You know, first it was speaking about the field, now it's speaking about the brook. The brook speaks to counsel. So now this is what these people do in our lives. They give us counsel that causes us to stray from the word of Elohim. You know, kind of like, you know, when your mom or dad used to tell you stop hanging out with the wrong crowd. You know, that's exactly what this is depicting. So here it is. He takes them out and take them unto the brook and burn them at the brook. Take them back to where they came from. You know, take that counsel, that Yah type counsel, take it away from you, burn it in with all the other dark counsel of the world. You know, it said they even stamped it to small powder and cast the powder thereof upon the graves of the children of the people. And that's just another way of saying, let them folks that give that bad counsel be dead unto you. You know, he goes on to say he break down the houses of the Sodomites that were by the house of Yahuwah, where the women wove hangings for the grove. You know, and this is a very ugly picture here. You know, Sodomites come from the term Sodom, but it's essentially the term that's translated here is Kodesh, which means a quasi-type holiness. You know, someone that looks holy, act holy, but they're not holy. And in fact, they're abominable, you know, in the eyes of Yah. Okay, and it says, and he brought all the priests out of the cities of Yahudah and defiled the high places where the priests had burned incense. See, even though they were in Yahudah, even though there's going to come a time, you know, when you're Father from above and you come into this thing, there's going to be some people in your lives that's going to not be good for you. You know, and this is just a picture of ridding your life of all these things, and all these people that will cause you to stray. You know, you're cleaning house. You know, now it says he brought the priests out of the cities of Yahudah that defiled the high places where the priests burned the incense, from Geba to Beersheba or Beersheba. Okay, Geba means cup or goblet, and Beersheba or Beersheba, if you prefer, means well of an oath. Okay, so both of these are dealing with covenant. You know, they speak spiritually to Yah's covenant. You know, and so here it is, it's saying from the time that you enter into covenant with Yah, then you know you're gonna take all this stuff that's in between. You know, all this stuff from that point on needs to get up out of here. It needs to get out of your life. Okay, you know, and it says they break down the high places. Now the high places is where the groves were often put. You know, now let's take a look at these high places. High places means simply to be high. Now, if you think like the ancients thought, you know, you would come to the conclusion that anything that's high you have to look up to. And things that you have to look up to, you have to look up to them because they are over you. And see, and that's a picture of authority. That's a picture of respect and regard. You know, it's a picture of authorities that's put over you. You know, so these high places, spiritually speaking, speaks to things that are that have authority over you. See, and what Yah is saying here, you know, by having Josiah do this, is that you need to tear down any and all authorities that is not of Yah in your life. That he wants to be the only authority in your life. Okay? Now, verse 9 went on to say, nevertheless, the priests of the high places came not up to the altar of Yahuwah in Jerusalem. So they wasn't offering on Yah's altar, but yet they were offering all the same, you know, in the land. You know, and you're going to have some people that, you know, try to separate you from your faith. You know, yeah, I know you go to church on this day or that day, you know, but I'm talking about doing something, you know, on this day. You know, but we're not called to just be holy on a particular day. We're called to be holy or kodesh on all days. I mean, and to serve Yah all the time. Okay, let's take a look at some more of these terms. It says that he defiled Topheth. Topheth means the place of fire. It says it's in the valley of the children of Hinnom. Hinnom means lamentation. And, you know, their god was Molech, and he was the fire god. His name means king. So here it is. It says he defiled the place of fire, the children of lamentation. You know, that no man might make his son or his daughter to pass through the fire to Molech. You know, so here it is. You had people that were sacrificing their kids, you know, to these guys that they might gain favor from them. You know, and that's not the way that we want to become blessed. Okay? Let me have my next reader read verses 11 through 13, please.
And he took away the horses that the kings of Judah had given to the sun at the entering in the house of Yahweh by the chamber of Nethanelech, the chamberlain, which was in the suburbs, and burned the chariots of the sun with fire, and the altars that were on top of the upper chamber of Ahaz, which the kings of Judah had made, and the altars which Manasseh had made in the two courts of the house of Yahweh, did the king beat down and break them down from thence, and cast the dust of them into the brook Kidron. And the high places that were before Jerusalem, which were on the right hand of the Mount of Corruption, which Solomon the king of Israel had built for Ashtaroth, the abomination of the Zidonians, and for the Chemosh, the abomination of the Moabites, and for Malcolm, the abomination of the children of Ammon, did the king defile.
Okay, let's take a look at some of these terms. We have Nathan Melech, which means given of the king. You know, so it says he took away the horses that the kings of Yahudah had given to the sun at the entering in of the house of Yahudah. Okay, so here it is, the entering in of the house of Yahudah. You know, how do we enter into the house? We enter in through the door. Who represents the door? Our Messiah, Yahshua. He says, I am the door. Amen? Okay, now there's been some horses that the kings of Yahudah had given to the sun, and they are at the entering. Horses always speaks to war. You know, so here it is, we see some warriors at the doorway. See, these warriors are still at the doorway. See, a lot of these pagan practices that has integrated itself in with the faith actually acts as deterrence to people finding the true way of Elohim, the real door that leadeth unto the way of life. See, but this is not by happenstance. You know, this was prophesied to happen. Y'all already knew it would happen. You know, hence the Messiah, when he walked the earth, he said, straight is the gate, narrow is the way that leadeth unto life, and few be that find it. See, so this thing was always intended to be something obscure to begin with. You know, and to make sure it stays obscure, you know, the enemy has his horses at the entering in of the gate. You know, one of the things that, you know, that I view that could be one of these warriors, if you would, that keeps people from the way that leadeth unto life is you know, these doctrinal issues. You know, some of these doctrinal issues, such as, you know, Yah's teachings and instructions are done away with. You know, this is purported all over very vehemently, you know, but it's mighty funny that when it comes to tithing, it's okay. You know, but in every other respect, you know, no, that's done away with. Malarkey. You know, Yah did not go through all the trouble of coming to his people and giving them, you know, the very thing that will cause them to be Kodesh, to be holy unto him, and to serve him, to just do away with it. And in fact, rather than doing away with it, he added unto it, made it complete. Hence the Messiah would say, you know, think not that I've come to take away the law and the prophets. I came not to destroy, but to fulfill it. You know, to replete it, to make it ready for use, if you would. You know, so there are some things that's blocking the true way, and the born-again believer has to get these things out the way. You know, the one that's followed from above, the young king over the land, you know, he has to do this. You know, now, when does he start doing all this stuff? He started doing it in his 18th year, you know, which makes him 26 years old, 18th year of his reign, which makes him 26 years of age. You know, 18 speaks to bondage, 26 speaks to the gospel of Messiah. So within that we see, you know, once one is bound to the gospel of Messiah, you know, then that's when all this takes place, when they start cleaning house. You know, once they enter into covenant with the Messiah. You know, this is the spiritual picture that's being depicted here. You know, we have, back to the terms, we have Nathan Melech. You know, it says, you know, he's the one that's responsible for giving this stuff, you know, giving of the king, but it wasn't our king. You know, then we have Ahaz, which means possessor, and Manasseh, which means causing to forget. You know, so that's exactly what they seek to do, is to cause us to forget, you know, the ways of Yah. You know, and here it is. It says the altars that were on top of the upper chamber of Ahaz, which the kings of Yahudah made, and the altars of Manasseh. Now these are two altars, and the altar speaks of, you know, people working in unity to actually care for Yah's people. You know, but here it is, they're working to possess them, and they're working to cause them to forget. See, these are our enemies that do us well to be able to recognize them and to realize that, hey, you know, they don't have our best interests in heart. You know, these altars, you know, they may give, but they give in order that they might possess us. You know, or in the case of Manasseh, you know, that they might cause us to forget. Forget what? Forget the truth, the way, and the life. Okay, and in verse 13 we have some terms. It says the high places that were before Jerusalem. You know, see, and this is all the stuff. Say if you're traveling to Jerusalem, if you're trying to walk in the teachings of peace that our Messiah has given us. All this stuff is along the way. Take note that it says that it was before Jerusalem. That means you have to pass it before you get into Jerusalem. You know, so we have to bypass all this stuff that done integrated itself into the land. You know, these preconceived notions and these understandings that came from places other than the word of Elohim. Okay, even though they may be based upon or speaking to the word of Elohim. Just like they were in the land of Elohim, they was in a place where Yah had put his name, even Jerusalem, even his temple, but at the same time, they were not of him. And they were a stumbling block to those who were trying to find him. So they are spiritually. You know, so any high places that's before Jerusalem, you have to tear down when you begin to reign, when you're Father from above. You know, when you enter into covenant with Yahushua, you have to tear down anything that's before his teachings of peace. Okay, and it says they were on the right hand of the Mount of corruption. You know, so in other words, mountain speaks to nations. So this is a nation of corruption, and they're the right hand. They're you know, the main thing that they use, that's their power, is to keep us out of the teachings of peace, to keep us out of the place of peace, to keep us out of heavenly places. You know, that's their power, that's their right hand. That's the works that they're seeking to do. Okay? And it says that Solomon, you know, the king of Israel, had built it. You know, he built it. He put all this stuff in the way. You know, so here it is. They, you know, all this stuff gets in the way for the sake of peace. Solomon's name means peace. You know, hence the word would tell us when they cry, peace, peace. There is no peace. You know that. You know, the peace comes when Yeshua comes back. Now it says that he built it for Ashtoreth. Ashtoreth is the same, is where we get Ishtar, which is where we get Easter. Okay, so now she was a goddess of love and riches. Her name means to increase. It means to make rich. People served her because they wanted to become rich. People are serving her today because they want to become rich. Now it's okay to, you know, to want the finer things in life, but that shouldn't be your motivation for life. You know, so here it is. This is what this pagan goddess, her name actually means. You know, then she was over the Zidonians. Now a Zidonian, their name means fishermen. Now this should ring a bell because the Messiah, he chose all fishermen. So here it is, you have some fishermen that's in competition with Yeshua's fishermen. So you have Yeshua's fishermen trying to make, going out there fishing for men. And you have the Zidonians that's out there fishing for men. And I have you know that Ishtar worship had a plan of salvation that was somewhat similar to Yeshua's plan of salvation. You know, and here it is. She has fishermen out fishing for men, just as the Messiah has fishers out fishing for men. You know, so you can see the resemblance here. And that's why a lot of this stuff look alike, and a lot of people get fooled. It also speaks of Chemos. Chemos means the powerful. You know, he was the abomination of the Moabites. And the Moabites speaks to the children of incest. No. The Moabites speak to Moab, of their father. Well, Moabites and Ammon, they both were of their father. In all actuality, those are the children of Lot. That's their descendants. But I say I have Ammon down there as children of incest. I have to look up Moabite again. I thought I I should have had it here, but here it is. They speak to powerful. You know, so here it is. They're very powerful. We do know that. And Milcom, the abomination of the children of Amnon, Milcom means king. And, you know, king of the children of incest, the inbred, the inbreds, those who are inbred or you know, come from ancestral relations. Now, verses 14 through 16 says, and he brake in pieces the images and cut down the groves and filled their places with the bones of men. Verse 14. You know, he brake in pieces the images and cut down the groves. Okay, so Josiah, he's breaking in pieces the images. He's cutting down the groves. He's taking everything that offends out, and he filled their places with the bones of men. In other words, I'm dead to that. That's dead. It's dead to me. Verse 15, moreover, the altar that was at Bethel and the high place which Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, had made, both that altar and the high place, he brake down and burned the high place and stamped it small to powder and burnt the grove. Now Jeroboam's name means the people will strive. And so they did, and so they do. And he was the son of Nebat, or Nebat, which means regard, i.e. to look upon or consider in a particular way. You know, and this is just what gets in the way of would-be believers, would-be righteous believers that will follow Yahshua. You know, what gets in the way is Jeroboam and what he has set up. A particular way of looking at things, a way of looking at things, the things of Yah that is not in conjunction to his righteousness, that's not conducive to righteousness. You know, so here it is, we have folks looking at things in ways that will cause them to strive against the way of righteousness, that strive against the way, the truth, and the life. Okay, in verse 16, and as Josiah turned himself, he spied the sepulchres that were there in the mountain, sent and took the bones out of the sepulchres and burnt them upon the altar and polluted it according to the word of Yahuwah, which the man of Elohim proclaimed, who proclaimed these words. You know, this was prophesied to happen over 300 years prior to Josiah doing this. And it even called him out by name and said that he would do it. How awesome is that? How awesome that you going through the word of Elohim and lo and behold, you find you in there. You find you in there written of before you were even born. Hallelujah. Isn't that awesome? And it says what you will do. And so you get to doing it. How awesome is that? That's pretty awesome, huh? Well, I'm here to tell you that you can find you in there. You know, when you see King Josiah, you should see you. When you see Israel, you should see you. When you see the apostles, you should see you. You know, when it speaks of righteousness, you should see you. You know, these things apply to each and every one of us. They was written concerning us even before we were born. You know, there's all types of end-time prophecies. It speaks of those who sowed and those who reap. You know, we're the ones who reap. The early apostles are the ones who sowed. We're the ones who reap. You know, it's written of the reapers. It's already written. It's told what they're going to do even before they even came on the scene. It was speaking of us, y'all. You know, now Josiah could have looked at that and said, surely they must be talking about another Josiah, not I. You know, and we can do likewise. You know, but let us do like unto Josiah and take hold of the word and acknowledge that it is speaking of us and walk it out. You know, it speaks about the groves and the high places, and someone was asking me about it the previous lesson, so I decided to throw some pictures in here to show how, you know, some groves, some pagan groves. Now this wasn't a grove, Ishtarian grove or an Astaroth type grove, but it was a pagan grove all the same. And, you know, these things polluted the land. You know, and these were high places, of course, they were set up in high places. But you see, even as they're covered with trees all around, you know, representing, you know, people of authority that's in your life, you know, that's causing you to do pagan things. You know, things that Yah does not take kindly to. Okay? And here's another picture of one of these groves, these pagan groves. And so you see, they even carved into the trees and things, you know, forms of humans, because they realized that the trees represented, spiritually speaking, represented people. Here's another one. You know, they're giving honor and praise to whatever El they serve, you know, but
Did they tell you, Ryan, where those were at?
this one's in Africa.
Oh, okay.
This one's in Africa. Did not mention where that one was, and this one is this was one of the Druid groves. I'm not sure. I forgot. I think it's in England somewhere, but I know this one's in Africa. You know, and these were in Africa as well. You know, but this is the type of things that they would have in the groves. They would have these images, these carved images in the groves. You know, and Yah, he just detested these things. You know, he detested them. You know, because they put things over his people. They put authorities over his people. You know, so he couldn't cover them, and so it left them exposed to the enemy. You know, this is the type of stuff we need to put out of our lives. Any and everything that is not of him, that we've exalted over us. Let me have my next read verses 17 through 21.
2 Kings 23, verse 17 through verse 21. Then he said, "What title is that I see?" And the men of the city told him, "It is the sepulchre of the man of Elohim, which came from Judah, and proclaimed these things that thou hast done against the altar of Bethel." And he said, "Let him alone. Let no man move his bones." So they let his bones alone, with the bones of the prophet that came out of Samaria. And all the houses also of the high places that were in the cities of Samaria, which the kings of Israel had made to provoke Yahuwah to anger, Josiah took away, and did to them according to all the acts that he had done in Bethel. And he slew all the priests of the high places that were there upon the altars, and burned men's bones upon them, and returned to Jerusalem. And the king commanded all the people, saying, "Keep the Passover unto Yahuwah your Elohim, as it is written in the book of this covenant."
Hallelujah. What a thorough work King Josiah was doing. As a matter of fact, there, you know, wasn't another king that was as thorough as he. You know, it says, and he said, "What title is that I see?" You know, and they told him about it, the sepulchre of the man of Elohim, you know, that had actually come and prophesied that he would do this. And here it is, you know, not only did he read it in the word, but as he was going out executing it, he finds a monument stating just what he's doing and that he would do it. You know, that's awesome. You know, and so he says, "Let him alone. No one move his bones." And so the guy who deceived the original prophet of Yah, who was really a false prophet of Samaria, you know, his bones got left in peace because he buried himself with the true prophet. You know, and that's just a spiritual picture of that anyone can be saved if you stop, if you bury yourself with the true word of Elohim. If you put yourself in with the true word of Elohim, and stop carrying out the paganism and the false things of the world, then you can be saved too. And all the houses also are the high places that were in the cities of Samaria, which the kings of Israel made to provoke Yahuwah to anger. Samaria means watchtower. So you had your city, New Jerusalem, you had these watchtowers. That way you know that the enemy coming. But if the enemy is in the watchtower, it's not going to work out too well for you. So he gets rid of all that too. He says Josiah took away and did to them according to all the acts he done in Bethel. So he took them and burnt them too. And then he commanded. He didn't ask. He commanded all the people, saying, keep the Passover unto Yahuwah, as it is written in the book of this covenant. Because they are entered in the covenant with him. Verses 22 through 26. My next reader, please.
Surely there was not holding such a Passover from the days of the judges that judged Israel, nor in all the days of the kings of Israel, nor of the kings of Judah. But in the 18th year of King Josiah, wherein this Passover was holden to Yahuwah in Jerusalem. Moreover, the workers with familiar spirits, and the wizards, and the images, and the idols, and all the abominations that were spied in the land of Judah and in Jerusalem, did Josiah put away, that he might perform the words of the law which were written in the book that Hilkiah the priest found in the house of Yahuwah. And like unto him was there no king before him that turned to Yahuwah, with all his heart, and with all his soul, and with all his might, according to all the law of Moses. Neither after him arose there any like him. Notwithstanding, Yahuwah turned not from the fierceness of his great wrath, wherewith his anger was kindled against Judah, because of all the provocations that Manasseh had provoked him withal.
Okay, now the spiritual picture here is real strong. Teaching us that, even though, we become Father from above and we do everything that we're supposed to do, Yah is still going to destroy this place, even as he has prophesied. The world still is going to go through a purging. The world is still going to feel the wrath of the Most High El, even as Judah had to. And so this is to show us that, it's good that we do what we're supposed to do, but know that his word is going to come to pass. Everything that he wrote concerning the end times, they will come to pass. And it says he put away that he might perform the words of Torah, which were written in a book that Hilkiah the priest found. We have a book filled with his teachings and instructions, and we simply do likewise. But Yah is not going to spare the world. He's still going to pour his wrath out amongst them because of Manasseh, because of all the things that's done to cause his people to be forgotten. And it caused him to be forgotten. They're not recognizing his authority. They're not recognizing that he is the creator. Instead, they're going after another king. And the price is going to have to be paid. Verses 27 through 30 says, and Yahuwah said, I will remove Yahudah also out of my sight, as I have removed Israel, and will cast off this city Jerusalem, which I have chosen, and a house of which I said, my name shall be there. And that has happened. And spiritually speaking, it's going to happen again. Now the rest of the acts of Josiah and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Yahudah in his days? Pharaoh Necho, king of Mitzrayim, or Egypt, went up against the king of Assyria to the river Euphrates, And King Josiah went against him, and he slew him at Megiddo. And when he had seen him, and his servants carried him in a chariot dead from Megiddo, and brought him to Jerusalem, and buried him in his own sepulchre. And the people of the land took Jehoahaz, I really jacked that, Jehoahaz, the son of Josiah, and anointed him and made him king in his father's stead. You know, so God is still going to exercise his judgment upon the world, no matter how good we be. You know, but he will spare us. You know, so praise be to Yah that he has, that his mercy endures forever, and that he has mercy and grace in his heart that we might be spared. You know, so that's a wonderful thing. That's all I have for you today. I pray it was a blessing. And at this time, we'll take any questions.